Good morning, RWorld. Welcome back to another episode of RWorld Talk. This morning, we are joined by David Coddington from the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance. How are you, sir?
Very well, very well. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all.
Well, thank you for being here. David, why don't you give us a little bit of background? Tell us about your role with the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, how the Alliance impacts the city and Broward County.
Sure. So the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance is a public-private partnership. It is the principal partner for economic development for Broward County. So we don't just represent the Broward County, but we also represent all 31 cities within Broward. We work with the state, with Florida Commerce, Select Florida, Broward County, the cities, Broward County Property Appraiser's Office, whatever organization that we need to in order to attract and retain. And our whole focus and charge from the county and our members is to work with companies that are considering relocating or expanding. Let's just say a company doesn't have a location on the on the East Coast of the United States or on the Southeast U.S., and they start looking and they're going to like, okay, Atlanta, Nashville, South Florida. When they look at South Florida, we're that organization that the state would reach out to, or that they would reach out to us in reference to somebody from the company, the CFO, COO. So we focus on those targeted industries, and that's what makes us a little bit different.
Okay.
Those targeted industries help us diversify the economy of Broward County or South Florida. If you think about what we went through with COVID, how that it really impacted hospitality and what that shut down. But technology took off. Aviation suffered, but they were able to do some other ramp ups in aviation. But if you look at some of the other things, medical, obviously, life sciences blew up. So that helps us when we look at those wages and that piece of hospitality, which is incredibly important to us. But those target industries of aviation, life sciences, marine, technology, logistics, and professional services, those all took off in a big way. So it helps us be better suited to handle difficult times if we're well diversified.
Okay. So you're talking to a whole bunch of realtors right now. We've got 42,000 members here, and when we bring some big industries down to South Florida, those people need places to live. So this is certainly something that you guys need to be listening into. Make sure that you become friends with David ASAP. I'm sure you've got a big sphere of influence that we could tap into. Talking about those industries that you're trying to bring down into the Greater Fort Lauderdale area or into Broward County, do you find that sometimes you are in a bit of competition with those industries, maybe wanting to go to West Palm Beach or wanting to go down to Miami?
Yes. So let's just say that we're frenemies, right?
Okay.
So we're frenemies. We were just up in our counterpart, the Palm Beach Business Development Board,
okay,
who is our CEO, Kelly Smallridge, and then Rod Miller with our counterpart in Miami.
Kelly's a good friend of the association as well, so we're not talking bad about any Kelly.
No,
it's just,
actually, we really learn from each other. So Kelly's done some things that like, hey, that's a good idea, and so you mind if we copy that and some of the things that we do and we share with them, and okay, that's a good perspective. And so, and then Rod Miller is the CEO for the Beacon Council, which is the economic development organization that represents all of Miami-Dade County.
Okay.
So we get our executive teams together a couple times a year, and we just had that 2 days ago. Kelly hosted us, her and her team, Tim and Sean, Tim Dewar and Sean Rowan, along with other staff, hosted us up there. And again, it helps us, and we kind of see how things are going with each of us and what the ideas are, or what are some of the challenges that might be coming at us, Tallahassee or locally or nationally. So, that piece. So, and there are opportunities when the most prevalent one would be working together would be Amazon HQ2. When we did that project a few years ago, that came across my desk, I went into our CEO's office and I was like, our CEO, Bob Swindell, and I'm like, Bob, there's no way that we're going to be able to do this on our own. But you know what? I don't think that Miami can handle it on their own, nor Palm Beach. But if we work together as a super region, I think we got a real shot at it.
Sure.
And the CEOs, Mike Finney at the time with the Beacon Council, and Kelly obviously at the BDB, they were on board with the whole piece, and all the teams were. So, it was interesting to me when I would get a response when it was out there, and so it went out to like 200 or 232, 240 or so communities around the country responded to that, and there were going to be one or two locations. At first, it was going to be one, then they were going to split up into two. But people were like, wow, we don't have a shot. Why would you think we have a shot, Dave? I'm like, why wouldn't we have a shot? Look at all our assets here. We have a tremendous history and strength in technology. We've got diversity. We have all these different things. We've got great universities.
Why look at the access to the ports that they would have to be able to get their product out.
Access to the ports, access to the airports, access to, and at that time, Brightline was, had come along and so forth. And to be able to have access to 6 million people, be able to, if they, put the HQ in Miami, fine, but maybe they're going to put another one, and a significant building in Fort Lauderdale. Maybe they will put another one in Palm Beach and be able to be on that rail line and go up and down. So we didn't obviously make the final choice, but we made the list the short list of 20.
Certainly put us on the map.
100%. All 3 CEOs were, had interviewed from Wall Street Journal and so forth. It put us absolutely on the map in reference to technology. And that allowed us to really talk about the history of technology in South Florida, and particularly for us in Greater Fort Lauderdale area, and how much that history, most people, we can get into those target industries a little bit more if you want, but most people have no idea that the smartphone was really invented here, that Silicon Valley. And when I'm like, hey, that thing that runs your life, that you start to have a panic attack if you get, I can't find my phone. Where is it? 5 minutes. That was invented here like 34 years ago. It was signed between Motorola and Plantation and IBM and Boca and Bell South Technology. So when we shared that information with Amazon, they were like, wow, I had no idea. And they started looking at all the technology companies that were here. SiriusXM, all the R&D for the car to the satellite. That's all done in Deerfield Beach.
Yeah. So, yeah. I always thought it was amazing when I had heard somebody had told me that Broward County was basically the Silicon Valley of the East. And I didn't know that there's any tech companies here. And then I actually looked through the list, and it was like, my goodness, there's tons of South American, big tech companies that have their headquarters here.
Well, you start to look into, so one of the things that's really amazing when you look back, so you had Scott Adams with Highway Technologies and his hosting of internet at that time. He based that in Miami, but he's an FAU alum, and he's, with Adams Center for Research at FAU. He's still involved, but you start to look at like Ed Iacobucci, who started Citrix. He was an IBMer, and IBM at that time was all about the hardware. And he said, I think it's about the software. And so he went out on his own, started in his garage in Coral Springs, a couple of other guys at IBM, and started Citrix.
Okay.
And at that time it was called Citrus, like orange. And started at, and he had that vision, think about that. He had that vision 30 some years ago about being able to work remote like we did during COVID.
I bet you everybody thought he was nuts.
Yeah, exactly. That guy is nuts. But he saw that future, and that's where it's awesome when some of these companies we get to work with, and you either meet that person or, in this case, Ed's been gone for quite a few years, but what a vision. And to see then things like that, to put in a map, or Scott Shear with Ultimate Software. You started that in a cubicle, at a law office. Wow. And blew it up. And then obviously Ultimate Kronos and Ultimate combined, and now it's the UKG group, and, and sold it for $9 billion, I believe, something like that.
That's incredible. So I had learned just before we started taping that you're friends with a couple of our past podcast guests. One of them happens to be Christine Hansen.
Yeah.
You've known since you guys were at school.
Yeah. Since middle school, high school.
Wow.
Yeah. So in the realty world, that was some exposure for me years ago when her mother had Hansen Realty, and Christine obviously growing up in the business and then took it over, and she's been obviously very influential in the realty world here in South Florida, and
big time.
Yeah.
And now nationwide, she's actually going to be the president of NAR.
Yeah, she's somewhat of a go-getter.
That's incredible.
She's awesome. She's
right up.
Yeah.
So getting back to the Alliance, what makes Fort Lauderdale unique besides its, obviously, we've got a beautiful, pristine coastline. The Alliance website boasts that Fort Lauderdale has the second best business climate in the nation. Can you explain that ranking to the viewers?
Sure. So that ranking comes through Business Facilities magazine. Business Facilities is a magazine, and then they do some conferences. It's really focused on Site Selector. So Site Selector is an industry where they assist companies that are looking to relocate, expand. What does that look like? So if it's a significant expansion, then they bring their expertise to the table and figure out where they're going to be able to work with government, where they're going to be able to work with other folks, education. They start to put all these different things together. So if a company is doing a significant expansion and looking at major other areas, it's a true assistance to that company to be able to utilize something like that. So that magazine then rates different areas. So for us, that's for the third year in a row, ranked number 2.
Awesome.
And mid-sized companies, or mid-sized cities, I should say. So we're not competing in that piece with New York necessarily. So we're competing with other ones like maybe Boise or Nashville or something to that extent. So like you have a 24-hour city, like in Manhattan or Chicago.
Sure.
And then you have an 18-hour, or Miami, 24-hour city, or say an 18 hours, which is a true term. And so we're that kind of mid-level city and mid-sized city. Even if you would think that with 2 million people in all of Greater Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, that's a lot of folks.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so they've chased that ranking is based on, they look back on the companies that have moved here, the companies that we've assisted, what the tax climate is like, what the business tax climate is like. So it's, obviously the no income tax, no personal income tax for the state, but also what's the tax rate there locally? What does it look like? How do they work together between all those different organizations that I mentioned before, collaborating? So for us, we were working with one company a while ago, and they were looking at their Americas headquarters, and it was us and somewhere in Virginia, and I want to say somewhere in Georgia, and we brought everyone together. So they came in and they wanted to meet the superintendent or somebody on the school board. We did that. They wanted to meet the port director. They wanted to meet. All right, great. So we pulled them all together. We're going here, we're going there, and then we had a dinner, and the CEO, I knew I had him at this piece because we took them on a boat, and they had about half a dozen of their execs in town as they were looking to make that final decision. And we were going down the New River in Fort Lauderdale, and I saw some of the execs like calling their wife, like, "Oh man, babe, we're here. This is awesome.
Show them the sparkling lights on the boat.
We've got this one. These guys, the hook is sunk in. And pulled hard. And but it's what he was impressed with was the fact he's like, man, we wanted to meet that port director in this other city, and he's like, well, good luck with that. All right, well, here's their contact information. So instead of like, hey, here's their contact information or call so and so. I think that we're very fortunate that the leaders of all these significant organizations, including ours, Mark Gale at the airport, and now it was Jonathan Daniels at the Port Everglades, and now we have a new port director, and I apologize, I can't remember his name because he just started, and Stacy Ritter of Business Lauderdale, or if it's Marty Keir at the Property Appraiser's office, whatever that office is that we need to work with, they all will come to the table and help us secure that piece. So that says a lot about the community that we were working with, and they all see the bigger picture.
Right.
Obviously, Monica Sapero, the county administrator for Broward County, she's that CEO.
I've known her for many years before she took that role.
Yeah. So you look at those leaders, and they see the greater good of working together and setting the egos aside, as well as the commission, works with us and is supportive of us. And when we make our case and when we bring a project to them, they're all in. They have questions, and we research it. And as long as we make sure that we do the correct research and so forth, and what needs to be done, and the ROI, the return on investment is there, sir, then they're all on board.
I always found it amazing, and it was really eye-opening to me being in South Florida. Any high-ranking official, any community leader, the mayor, the property appraiser's office, everybody is so accessible here.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you find that in places across the country, but that warm South Florida hospitality, you can get that from any one of the departments. It doesn't matter who it is that you're trying to contact. You could always get to who it is that you're needing to speak to. Everybody is always happy to speak.
Yeah, in that case, like that CEO got up in front of everybody. He's like, I'm going to call such and such governor and let him know he needs to hear what's going on in Greater Fort Lauderdale, because this is the way to do business, not that way up there. We're putting our headquarters in Greater Fort Lauderdale, and they did, and went for us.
Beautiful. Good to hear. So in the last few years, downtown West Palm Beach has had, they've experienced a big boom, and has been called Wall Street South. Obviously, we've got a lot of financial companies that are migrating down, which is hence the name Wall Street South. But Fort Lauderdale, on the other hand, has been getting a lot of attention for being sort of tech-centric. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, just in compliments to Kelly and the crew for the Wall Street South, they've done a phenomenal job. Wealth has been a target industry for Palm Beach for over 100 years with, Henry Flagler, right?
Yep,
It goes back. And what she's brought that new perspective to it, kudos to her and her team. They've done a great job. On the technology side, you're right. So I looked at that and I'm like, how do we brand this? I mean, we have these conversations with workforce, and the workforce is like, well, the tech companies aren't here. I'm like, well, that's crazy. I just told you some of the tech companies. We have great tech, and not just a couple. There's over 5,000 tech companies in South Florida. And then tech companies sometimes are like, we can't get the talent. I'm like, what do you mean you can't get the talent? How are we able to do some of this stuff, like I mentioned, the Simon, the Fart, Citrix, Ultimate Software.
We had already mentioned everybody's working remotely.
Yeah. Chewy, Ryan Cohen started at downtown Fort Lauderdale.
And they're what, headquartered now in Dania Beach?
Yeah, they were. They just moved it to Plantation. We just did their new HQ over 225,000 square feet.
They're a fun company.
They're an awesome company. We on the technology side. So yeah, it's become a tech. I shouldn't say. Here's one of the things I bring some perspective to. It's not that we've just become one. We've been one for years.
Right.
And I had talked to some of the guys at Motorola years ago. So getting to the branding side and how that's become, because we started this thing, I came up with the idea to create, we had to brand it. How do we brand it? And so came up with the idea, went out and met with all these different technology companies and their execs and so forth. And hey, what's the good, the bad? 3 things came out of that. One was they wanted to be able to attract talent from outside the area, not just talent out of the universities, but mid-level talent.
Okay.
And also that if they had a spouse, a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever partner, they am like, hey, I'm getting offered to go to whatever Greater Fort Lauderdale. Where would I work? I'm in technology and I'm not going to work at the same company. Oh, there's no other ones. Yeah, there are. And so how do we communicate that there are so many opportunities in technology? So that was one of them. And then the other piece was what's here already. How do we make sure that the people here realize what's here? And then the third piece that came through very consistently was a better relationship with the universities for interns and so forth, and just research and so.
And we've got some fantastic universities right here in Florida.
100%. And so I was like, well, how do we figure this out? And so Bob Swallow, as I mentioned before, our CEO, he had a map of Silicon Valley in his office that he got from the guys at Citrix, because Citrix has a location out in Silicon Valley.
Sure.
And then I was making a trip out there and to Silicon to visit that location, to visit some other companies. And I saw that map. I'm like, we need one of those. That's a great idea. But then what are we going to call it? So I asked all these execs that we had met with and come together. We did our first meeting at Dr. Hanbury, President Hanbury at NSU hosted us, and we had them and FAU there, as well as FIU, and couldn't make it, but we had representatives from the universities, and we had all these tech execs there. And I put the map up of Silicon Valley, and I go, that's the goal. We need to have that. That will communicate, and not just this hard print, but on the digital side too. So what are we going to call it? And then after several meetings, we popped around different things and so forth. And there had already been, some efforts, and before that, there was the ICOS before that, and they got a grant. But we really need to be able to have something that we can market easily and something that you could see and make wow.
Sure.
And so came up with that idea to be able to do our own map, and we went through different iterations, and StarMark did a great job on creating that artwork for it. And we blew that up and came up. And so one of the guys from BlackBerry said, oh, well, we're talking about the name. And he's like, well, aren't we the gateway to Latin America? Aren't we this? And then he's like, well, kind of, aren't we the tech gateway? What about we just say tech gateway, and we'll just leverage off of the gateway to Latin America? And
brilliant.
And everybody around the table was like, done. Great idea.
Let's go get a beer.
Yeah, exactly. We're done. All right. So now what's it look like? And that's what I mentioned. So StarMark did a great job. We've been doing this for over 10 years. So you can go on to techgateway.org and see that, and those logos, and each logo is activated. And we utilize this when I mentioned to you about the Amazon HQ2. When Bob brought it down to one of the meetings we had in Miami with them,
right?
Put it out on the big boardroom table, and they were all like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. Wow, Amex has got how many people? 4,000 people here? And you had a Chewy, and you had this and that, and we're like, yeah. And so it's an easy visual to see that. And then if you go on the website, each logo is activated. So, hey, what does Zendu do? Well, click into it. Zendu is a cool early stage company. They've been doing great. Lil Roberts is the CEO and founder of that company. She's a serial entrepreneur. They focus on accounting platform for small, medium-sized companies.
I've been seeing their billboards up and down the 95 very recently.
Yeah, so she's awesome. She's a rock star. She won the pitch competition at Emerge. She won the pitch competition for SUPEX. She won the pitch competition for when Steve Case came into town for Rise of the Rest and so forth.
Okay.
I was with her a couple weeks ago. So we want to be able to communicate. So that map allows us, and then we talked to the steering committee, and they were like, hey, we need to have this in the universities. And they was like, okay, yeah, great. Hey, we need to have this in the high schools. Oh, hey, we really need to have it all the way down into the middle school. So we met with Superintendent Runcie at the time of Broward County Schools and hit him up, or pitched, I should say, to him, can we work with you guys to get this in so these students will realize the opportunity and the history and
that they have right here at home.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
And so we don't lose that talent. Yeah, go away or stay here. Go to FIU, FAU here, UM, whatever, NSU. Go to UF. Go to wherever. Go somewhere else. Go, maybe not FSU. That's only because I'm a Gator. I had to throw that one in. No, I mean, look, we have great state universities all around. It doesn't matter if it's UCF, USF, whatever, all across.
Anybody but FSU, apparently.
Possibly. I'm that family divided.
Right.
The kids are FSUers and I'm a Gator. So,
well, that map and that, so techgateway.org, I think would be a fabulous resource for our Realtor members that are listening right now. Because we've got a lot of people that are coming from California, which was a new thing that started happening during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. If we're trying to attract people from Silicon Valley and you're saying, hey, we've got these houses that are for sale over here, we can get some info from techgateway.org to really say to those people coming from California, you've got jobs waiting for you right here. These are the companies that are, local to South Florida.
Yes.
Why don't you give them a shot?
So I came up with the idea to market this. So when you heard about those layoffs going out on the West Coast, right, they were all in tech. So whatever, whoever was laying off out there, Facebook, so forth on Google, they were doing that layoff, and Microsoft was laying off some folks, I believe. I'm like, well, why don't we take advantage of that? So the Alliance and our CEO Council, all those members, those funds that we get from them, and it's all the directive we get from them is all for marketing. So Rick Case, I've been with us for a few years now, but we were sitting around the table a few years back, and he said, well, why don't we have an opportunity fund for, bad weather? What happens if New York gets hit with a big snowstorm or something like that, a blizzard? Hey, why don't we put something beautiful facade of Fort Lauderdale up there, or Greater Fort Lauderdale, and then you guys
cover down Square and all that,
which, great idea. So which Stacy and her before her, Nikki Gross was doing, and but why don't we do it for business? So we had that opportunity, that money set aside for when opportunity presents itself, but it was based on weather. So then I pitched to our executive team. So why don't we do that on these layoffs? How about we've got all these tech companies here. There's 10,000 open spots here through South Florida. Why don't we pitch it out there? So we did. We put billboards up from Silicon Valley into San Francisco, a lifeguard shack, lifeguard post on Fort Lauderdale Beach, and a rescue board, and said Fort Lauderdale to the rescue. Over 10,000 tech jobs open. Visit GFL or visit lesstaxing.com, because that's one of our other slogans is less taxing. So we utilize lesstaxing.com, and when you go into that puts you into our main website, and then they can see the Tech Gateway map, and then there's job postings on there as well.
Amazing. So you guys are doing an incredible job. Keep them coming. Bring them down here. So staying on that migration tangent that we're on, relocation to South Florida has always had some pretty key migration patterns. You get people coming down from the Northeast specifically, but after the pandemic, we started seeing that influx of people coming from the West, people coming from California. The city's efforts to attract buyers are vital, obviously, as South Florida continues to become more diverse. But what types of impacts is the city having on people, basically foreign investors that are coming from outside of the U.S. and trying to bring that talent into South Florida?
So when you mentioned city, and we talked a little bit about this, so the Alliance is that public-private partnership that represents the whole county, all 31 cities.
Right.
And so part of that charge that we have from the county and our members is to market us outside the area. So domestically, so you don't see what we market here because it's in our backyard.
Right. We
push this out through other publications like Business Facilities, Area Development, whatever that may be, Wired magazine on the tech side, or different pieces, and Zimmerman Advertising helps us with that. They're another CEO Council member, and so we push that out outside. So that piece domestically, that's where so they can come in from anywhere. So as well as some of the different conferences and members organizations that we're members of, to be able to push that word out. So that's on the international side, as well as Florida Commerce, right? So we used to have Enterprise Florida, that now has become Florida Commerce again. And that's the marketing side, and for business, for the state side. They're going through some transitions. They pulled back on the marketing. So we've got to make sure that we continue to market ourselves and use our funds in the best that we can. But working with the state or in Select Florida, Select Florida is the international arm for them.
Okay.
So right now, you got a group that will be going to Farnborough, England, which is just outside of London, for the air show. Last year, Bob and myself and Mark Gale, the director of the airport, went to Paris for that air show. The two biggest air shows in the world, and they go back and forth.
Okay.
But it's not like the air show you think here, right? It's not like it's not like we're all going to the beach and no. I believe it's about 100 or 150,000 people, but it's countries, and it's people coming there, military is coming to buy certain things, and Boeing is there, Rolls-Royce is there, Airbus is there.
Sure.
You name it, Pratt Whitney, GE, all these folks are there. So that allowed us to do some meetings. So Florida Commerce takes the lead on that as well, and then there's a delegation that comes from Florida that if you choose to go. So that's one of the ways we market internationally, and then as well as we are part of Industrial Asset Management Council, which also does international. But the international piece also then comes through some of the cities. City of Fort Lauderdale has an outreach. Russell Weaver does a great job with the sister city. Sister cities is a cultural exchange.
Right.
Fort Lauderdale's got sister city in Colombia and here and there and all. Miramar, they have a great sister cities program as well. But Russell and I have traveled, around the world, a couple different places but we mix it with business. So he's coming in from the cultural side from sister cities, and we're coming in from the business side.
Okay.
So a new route to Peru. We went down there years ago with JetBlue, and we met with certain businesses that were looking to do business up here in Greater Fort Lauderdale, and then also hit the cultural side of it as well.
That's brilliant for you guys to follow where the airlines are moving to.
Yeah, exactly. So working with our friends at FLL, again, all coming together. So it was the Visit Lauderdale, it was the airport, it was us, it was sister cities. You put that piece together. So we try to make sure that there's working together. How do we get that international message out? And so we just had, here's another way we worked regionally. We had a delegation so Select USA is a big conference that Select USA is basically us for the country.
Okay.
And they just did their annual meeting up in DC. The Beacon Council reached out to us, and we tried to do this years ago and didn't get traction. This one got really good traction. And so folks that were coming into the U.S. to go to that, so before they go up to D.C., hey, would you be interested in stopping in South Florida and see what we have?
Of course they are.
Of course they were. So we had a nice delegation of folks. They came in one night and then had dinner, and then they met with the Beacon Council in the morning and met with some of the other folks, the airport, some of the other folks. Rod Miller, their CEO of the Beacon Council, spoke with them. Alona sit with the Beacon Council, set that up, and reached out to us. And so they were in Miami in the morning, and then came up and visited to Brightline, visited with us in the afternoon. So we did a lunch and had different speakers. Had the mayor speak as well, Mayor Rich, and so one of the other things is so Ty Sutton is our new CEO for the Broward Center, and had him speak as well because the Broward Center is the cultural embassy for us.
Sure.
So we've done several different things with them. But that was an opportunity for us before they got up there. So we had a great opportunity to speak with the companies that were coming in from, Europe, South America, all over. So that international piece is a big effort, but, we got to keep that push out there and make sure when they look at South Florida, we are included in that opportunity, not just Miami. And we appreciate the collaboration with the Beacon Council. It was a good success for both of us.
So we were just talking about people coming down from the Northeast, people coming from out West, people coming from different countries. Obviously, relocation, typically a result of job growth, commerce, expansion, all those types of things. So what is the city doing right now, or the region doing right now, to control those growth patterns? And where do you feel that we may need some improvements for sustainability? Because we all know that there's more land to build on down here.
Right.
So what are we looking at in that sense?
So you become a victim of your own success.
Right.
So come on, you guys need to attract more companies here and bring more people. I'm like, okay, great.
Where are we going to put them?
Hey, we have too many people. Out of the way. One of the great lines that I like is Stacy Ritter. She's like, yeah, we have all these tourists. They come here, they spend their money, they leave their money, and then they go away.
Yeah.
And they go back home. But when you start to look at, and why do we market to companies, or I should say target industries to come here? Because when you bring in that new payroll, that's a massive amount of taxes. When you bring in that new capital investment, that's it. When a city doesn't grow, it kind of dies. Right. So
we need the impact money. Let's keep going.
So, but the challenge is how to handle that. And so that vision years ago, so Broward County passed that 1 cent tax, and we were supportive of that. I want to say it was like 4 years ago, something like that. 1 cent tax that that is all for transportation.
The penny tax for transportation.
Correct. Right. So now that's starting to come to fruition. It's starting to look at it. Now it's not just like, okay, let's plan. What does that look like beyond, and how do we start to implement that plan? So that's going to include everything from the basic thing of electric buses, more things, but good with that. But light rail or express buses or bus only lanes with rapid transit busing or so forth. So that's going to come into play, and part of that whole piece is seeing that plan all together. So everything from connecting to the rail coming through, commuter rail coming through on the FEC line, to light rail system going east and west, because that's a challenge. Right. That was on the plan, she's got 45 years ago.
I was going to say decades ago.
Yes, decades ago. Yes. The Broward Metropolitan, the MPO organization, very soon I can't remember Greg's last name, but their CEO popped in my head, but he realized that there was a plan. He found it, 40 years ago. There was a plan to have light rail through the middle of 595 all the way out to, Aaron Arena now, at the time when Wayne Huizenga had the whole thing built where the Panthers play. So, Greg Stewart, that's it. Sorry, Greg. You look at that and you see what that looks like. And so now, a few years later, we're actually going to be able to implement some of these things. So that piece to everything from a light rail system that will connect the airport to the port. And one of the really cool things is eventually, the plan is now, and it will when it comes to fruition. But because you're looking at Fort Lauderdale as the second or third busiest cruise port in the world.
Right.
The fact that we have Miami at number 1 and Port Canaveral at 2 or 3, depending on how many people are going through there that week and that month, nonetheless, number 2, number 3, you look at the amount of people and how close it is, but you still have to get from the airport to the cruise port. At a point in the future, you will be able to jump on a plane coming from wherever. Let's say you're coming from Milwaukee and you're going out through Port Everglades. You'll be able to put your luggage on that plane, get off that plane, take a light rail system from the airport over to your boat or your ship, and not even have to touch your luggage. Your luggage will be delivered to that ship.
Oh, that is going to be so cool.
I mean, think about it. That is
what a beautiful experience. You see that our port would get a lot busier with cruises if you had that. If it was that ease of access that you had.
Yep, it's huge. We were just with John Padgett, the CEO of Princess Cruise Lines, a couple of days ago. We talked about some of these things and what they are planning. They've got a significant facility in Fort Lauderdale, but you start to look and see what the plans are ahead for all the cruise lines.
Okay,
what that looks like.
John, if you're listening, we need you in that chair.
Yeah, what that looks like for all the cruise lines, Royal Caribbean and Celebrity, and they're the fact that Port Everglades has just done such a phenomenal job, and they're continuing to adapt beyond just the light rail system and the new road that's going to be connecting there before the light rail. The fact that they're looking at shore power and so forth, not looking at it, planning ahead for shore power. The county commission and the leadership has done a phenomenal job on looking at those economic engines and how do we best utilize them, and the master plan coming along for FLL, including that light rail system and a potential hotel, and now Terminal 5, which is going to be separate, which I think got approved a little while ago under that master plan. So there's a lot going on.
I've done a ton of traveling, which obviously you have as well. Isn't it always nice to come back to FLL, no matter where you're coming from? It's like our airport is so easy to get in and out of, to navigate. I mean, we've got everything that you could possibly need in the airport, but it's so easy to get
to. Here's the one of the other real advantages that we have is that our airport is so close to downtown. Right. So when I come back from travel, one of the last things you want to do when you come back from travel is have to drive an hour.
Exactly.
To get home, right? You're telling me, oh my gosh, I still have 2 hours to get home, or an hour or whatever. Literally, I land, call the wife, say, hey, come pick me. Or text her, hey, we just landed, leave in 5 minutes. And, and then sometimes she'll get there before I even get from the plane out to the curb, and we live downtown. It's phenomenal. So
I'm all the way up in Pompano Beach. It only takes me 17 minutes to get to the airport.
Yeah. Consider that when you're looking at, we compete against Denver. Denver's airport is an hour.
Yeah, nowhere near Denver.
No, and nowhere near the mountains.
It's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. So a huge advantage for us to be able to, and so business-wise, hey, you're going to be right there downtown in your office, 15-minute, if that, over to the airport.
Right.
Or I just got home and I'm home in minutes. And even if you live out west, the fact that 595 is right there, you're home in minutes. It's a huge advantage for us.
So you just touched on some of the new developments, Terminal 5, the things that are happening down at the port, and light rail, things like that, that there's some potential for. So we've got 43,000 people throughout South Florida that are tuning in, listening. Yeah. Many of them do business in the Fort Lauderdale area. So are there any updates that you could share with us or new developments that people should know about that are coming down the pike?
Yeah, there is just a tremendous amount of growth coming throughout Broward County. Certainly, we have the seat of the county with Fort Lauderdale, right? The Downtown Development Authority and Jenny Marron does a great job, and her staff and what they do. But there's also other areas of the county that are developing their own. Coral Springs has developed their own downtown area, and so does Pembroke Pines, and so is Miramar, and so so is Hollywood, and so is Pompano, and so is Sunrise. And I mean,
Pompano's the one that everybody's all upset about. You got 50% of the residents that can't wait for it to happen, and the other half are like, "Why are you doing this?"
If I say this, so it's awesome to see. So I've been at the Alliance now for almost 15 years, and seeing that growth, and you see through that time, Fort Lauderdale did the renovation, the updating of the beach, and Hollywood did it, and Lauderdale by the Sea did it, and Dania did it, Dania Beach did it, and Pompano. I'm like, what happened? I used to joke with the guy. I'm like, well, what's going on? But to their credit, Chris Clemens has been running the economic development there for years. He does a great job, and now joined by Jeannie McIntyre, who was at the Pompano Chamber. But they've done a great job on slowly and quietly acquiring property and building that. And they hired MRA to come in and work that downtown, that growth piece.
Yep.
And now and they brought that plan out. It takes a lot. It takes years,
It takes years.
When you see something, it just doesn't happen. Fort Lauderdale, when they said, hey, let's get rid of spring break, in the party crowd to become more family oriented and higher dollar value on the hotel rooms and so forth, and become basically a more appropriate place to go, and it's not just a spring break party pad. So that took years to get done.
Spring break's still happening, because this past spring was happening.
It's happening, but nothing like what it was when I was growing up.
No, definitely.
There's no candy store. There's no that whole. It was years ago. Thank God there are not photos of all that stuff. At least not phones. But to that point, Pompano's really done a phenomenal job. Now you can see what those years.
Incredible.
It's the new pier.
The locals love it, but we don't want too many other people to find out.
Well, that's the story, right? That's the whole thing. You got the beach house and you got the Lucky Fish. Lucky Fish, I love.
Yeah.
What a great place just to hang out during the day and enjoy a margarita, whatever, cold beer. It's phenomenal.
Yep.
But they've all the cities now have done a phenomenal job. But it's not just on the east side. It's again on the west side. We were just out in Miramar, and what they've done with their downtown area and development. It's took years, and I was out there the other day meeting with their administration. We've got 4 different projects in Miramar right now. And they've just done a phenomenal job, and it shows.
Yeah, it seems like if you want to live in a sleepy little town, you're going to have to go a lot further north.
Got to get
at least to Martin County. Lazy Lake,
the smallest city in Broward County of like 12.
Yeah, it's Lazy Lake. All you got to do is buy a house. You can be the mayor of Lazy Lake. So we're seeing a trend of younger buyers and working professionals now purchasing property. South Florida's demographics obviously change with that, changing with the times. So we're no longer that national retirement hub. We're a bustling metro area with tons of young professionals. Are you seeing that trend as well?
My gosh, yeah.
Okay.
So we had a significant technology company visit us and looking at this area, and I'll come back to this second, but to that point, you look what's going on. We just mentioned the Fort Lauderdale DDA and the other ones. Population in Greater Fort Lauderdale is greater 40 or younger, over half.
Wow.
Yeah. So under 40, which is amazing. And you start to see that, and the transformation, I should say, really, of downtown Fort Lauderdale. Now you're seeing young couples pushing a stroller with a baby, maybe a dog and the stroller, but nonetheless, or kids. It's amazing. The Publix, Greenwise Market downtown was a game changer. Congrats to Styles for getting that all done, and that whole main piece was amazing. It's really transformed downtown Fort Lauderdale. But again, you see that in these other areas too. I mentioned I was out in Miramar, Coral Springs, what they've got going on, and really bringing in young talent. So going back to the company that we were courting to come here, the CEO was like, "Well," I'm like, "Well, are you having an issue with schools? He goes, "Nope, no, don't care about schools. We attract and recruit to the highest and best talent out of the best universities. I want them to be able to walk out of the door of the office to the left and go to their apartment or condo, or go to the right and go to a bar or a pub or whatever."
Right.
And I was like, so, I mean, it was all young talent.
I got you.
Yeah, I got you. See that thing right there? Look, actually, the main one tower is residential. One tower is office. I mean, you literally go out of your office, go down the elevator, go across the lobby, and go up the other one in your home.
Yeah. Exactly.
So.
Yeah, you've really seen the change in not even just downtown Fort Lauderdale, but really in the parks, anywhere that you go.
Sure.
You are seeing a lot of young families, but primarily downtown Fort Lauderdale. When I go to do the Tower Club luncheons, you're seeing the traffic that's on the street. Tons of pedestrians, which is not something that you used to see in sort of the financial core there. But a lot of young professionals, which you could see the demographic has drastically changed.
Right. In that Flagler Village area, is taking off. So congrats to Alan Hooper, Cooper Construction, and Tim Bertrillo, and those guys. They were able to get Heinz to come in. They've got the new T3 project that Blanca's repping. Heinz came down and looked at Fort Lauderdale and said, "Wow, I wasn't aware that this was such a dynamic community."
Right.
And what Doug McCraw was able to do for years, having the Art Walk and Fat Village, and creating that whole sense of community around art and getting out and so forth, and those historic, not historic, but World War II warehouses. And now they've taken Heinz's, with tremendous respect to what Doug had created through all those years, because on the last Saturday of the month, he'd have an art walk, 2,000, 3,000 people there. It was just a blast. Anyways, but they've taken some of those pieces of those warehouses, are going to incorporate it in that design. So they're going to be building a T3 project, which stands for Transportation, Technology and Timber, because the building, actually the pillars in it are made of wood, which is kind of interesting. It's super interesting, because when they asked us to come up to Atlanta, Bob and I, to go up to Atlanta to see the T3, so we would get an understanding of what makes this building so different and so unique. And then when they told us it was going to be wood, and we were both like, termites? How's that?
We don't do that in Florida. What are you talking about?
Because you're not allowed to use Dade County pine. And my first house was a Dade County pine, which termites can't eat and stuff. But so they went through the explanation of it, and so they're using renewables resources and wood to come from renewable forests and so forth. But it's amazing. So it's really kind of that industrial feel of wood and concrete, and it's awesome. Facebook took the top floor of the one in Atlanta, and it's really focused on tech, and they put it in that Fat Village, which is right near the Brightline station. So that's the transportation side.
That makes a lot of sense.
But they're going to have, I can't remember how, I think a couple, 250,000 square feet of office, then they're going to have residential on and some retail. They were able to assemble 5 acres downtown Fort Lauderdale, which was
pretty amazing, possible to do.
Right. So that piece on that, but attracting young, but it's all young talent. You go through that whole area. It's just, we were taking a tour with a company that was looking. So it was the executive team, and I took them through Fat Village and Flagler Village, and they're like, "Wow, this is really cool. Maybe I want to live here." Because they're like, "Where would our workforce live?" And I'm like, "Well, if you're downtown, probably here."
That's why everybody keeps moving here. All it takes is one day in Fort Lauderdale, and you go, "Yeah, this is a place for me."
One of our good friends had said, on the Carlos Milne, when he used to be with Visit Lauderdale, he had mentioned, he goes, it just starts with a visit. And so that's where that collaboration, again, between two of the main organizations, Visit Florida, they bring folks in, and like, "You mean I can work here?" There are these types of companies.
Not just a vacation place.
It's not just tech. There's aviation. We are a world-class world-class hub for aviation on the maintenance, repair, and overhaul, as well as the leasing side. I mean, we can get into that piece whenever you want, but I mean, it is significant. I mentioned aviation before, the RWorld, but I said I've got 4 aviation projects in Miramar right now. We're working some other ones. I got a gigantic one we're working in Sunrise, and that would bring 75,000 room night stays a year for this other facility that we're working in Sunrise and the city and the property appraiser's office. But I had this conversation and I asked, so what are the drivers of the project? And the CEO was like, well, we really want to have a 954 area code. And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of interesting. And so I worked another project. What are the drivers? Well, we really want our clients to know we had a 954 area code. And I was like, oh, well, okay. Why is that? Well, it means quality. That communicates quality and integrity in our workforce and things. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So the first one said that. The second one said that. The third one, all right. The third one, I was like, okay, there's something to this. So I dug a little deeper and I said, if you think about it, aviation is not just about parts, it's about the chain of custody. So every time the door blows off or this or that, not every time, hopefully that doesn't happen again. But if there's any mishap or a crash, anything to do with the airplane, they go back to that chain of custody. Who was the last company to touch this? Who was the last person to touch this? And is that documented on that chain of custody? So it's not just that you have talent to be able to do the mechanical side of aviation, but you have the expertise to be able to do the paperwork side and the tracking of every single part, and everything has a certain time frame and lifetime. And so that was really, so we came up with the phrasing that 954 area code means quality, integrity in the aviation workforce. And
so the aviation world knows that if you're calling a 954 number, you've got somebody who knows what's going on.
You've got skill sets here that, are only in other few other places in the world.
Amazing. So in the interest of time, I'd like to help you get this wrapped up. How does your membership with the Alliance work, and why should some of our realtors consider getting involved?
Sure. So the Alliance is a little unique. Obviously, it's not a chamber. Chamber's got a different role. Alliance is, we're only about 225 members.
Okay.
And sometimes when a company comes in, they have all those resources already. They've got, maybe they've got a commercial broker already. They've got a residential broker already. They have a bank. They have a law. But sometimes they don't. But so I just made a referral to one of our members who is residential. I just got an email. Hey, David, I'm coming back in town. I've got other folks that are going to be moving from this gentleman's moving from California.
Yeah.
So can you connect us to a residential broker, which we've done through the years? Also, do you need a tour of a school, private, charter, public, whatever that may be? So as far as your membership, but I think the bigger piece for your membership is, and I try to make sure I say this every time, is that you guys sometimes are the ambassador. You're the first ambassador, right? Maybe they're looking here, like we say, comes with a visit, and like, hey, they're here. I'm like, hey, honey, you want to go look at some houses? What does that look like?
We're the first one they talk to and the last one they talk to.
Right. And so, and how important is that's a good impression?
Right.
And so, our request to your members really is more about, hey, if you have a client that is looking at a house and they're with some significant company, have that conversation. Hey, are you also if you ever consider doing business here? There's this organization called the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance. They're the point for all of Broward County. Love to be able to, here's their website or here's David Coddington's information. And, please reach out to them or I'll connect you. So that piece is, and look, it happens all the time. Like you said, they're the first and the last. They start looking, they close the deal on the house. Thank you very much. And then they can go back and start to think about the business. But that business side is only going to happen if they find that right place to live. Right. So that to me is a huge, again, it's a collaboration, just like you mentioned about the other organizations, the port, the airport, Visit Lauderdale, the county, the property appraisers, whatever the organization is. I'm hoping I'm not leaving anything out. That our relationship with brokers, both commercial and residential, is huge. Our relationship with NAIOP, our relationship with Coronet, our relationship with South Florida Office Broker Association, our relationship to SIOR or CCIM, whatever, those are all hugely important for us. So, and we want to make sure that we, at the same time, are able to give back to your members.
Okay. So you guys just heard that right here. If you have a big tech company or any big business, because we've got a lot of members that are connected in a lot of different ways, put them in contact with David and hopefully he can bring them down here so you can sell some homes. One last question that we ask of everybody who comes on the podcast. I'm sure you've heard it because you told me that you listened to Christine's episode. We're looking for your favorite South Florida gem, something that maybe one of the members hasn't experienced yet, been to, bar, restaurant, beach spot, park, whatever it is.
All right. Well, if I tell you my favorite...
You happen to know every place, so...
Yeah, but if I tell you my favorite spot, then other people are going to go to my favorite spot.
It happens.
But...
Give me your second favorite.
So, yeah. So, so one of the things I really do like to do is I love just being by the water. I grew up on the water, lifeguard, this, that, just dive. That's part of who you are if you grow up in South Florida.
Right.
So one of my favorite spots is along the New River downtown Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
I've got a little spot there that I bring a chair and my dog, the girlfriend, maybe a bottle of rum or a Coke, and just hang out there. And it's just, and then I see friends. I see them, swinging by on their boat, and I'm like, yeah, how you doing?
Yeah.
But so
I've spent many a time down there where I just grab a bottle of wine and just go and sit down on the water. And I've got a secret spot as well. We're not going to tell anybody where it is, but yeah, nice spot to hide out. Because you know what? The only people that you're going to bump into there are a couple of locals, tourists, but it's usually locals that you know.
Yeah, exactly. It's to be able to sit, whatever, at the end of a long day, or we'll go out on a Sunday afternoon and sit and just hang out, and like I said, whatever, bottle of wine.
Yep.
Just hang out, just relax and enjoy the beautiful tropical paradise that we live in.
Just watch the boats go by.
Yeah. And the breeze along the river is always really nice.
Awesome. Well, David, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
And for you guys, we will see you right back here next Friday, 8 a.m. on RWorld Talk.
Awesome.